Knuckles Miniseries Issue 1. Already I don't have the highest hopes for this miniseries because Knuckles is traveling alone, with no one to talk to. So the only dialogue in the case would be him boringly monologuing about stuff we already know or don't care about, possibly leading to nothing but exposition. Hopefully it'll be better than that. Hopefully it'll be better than an entire miniseries full of nothing but, Sally sneaking into a base and not saying anything because she's no one to talk to. Knuckles reaches the place where the ancient echidnas abandoned all their technology and sees that it's full of traps. Okay, so if the echidnas expected that people would want to get the technology back, then the idea that all of the echidnas were 100% okay with abandoning technology is even harder to believe, because even the echidnas themselves were doubting it, putting traps around and motion sensors in case one of them would go back on the bow. You really expect me to believe that none of them did? There's no skeletons or bones lying around or anything? Fortunately, Knuckles is able to conveniently avoid all traps just by gliding and makes his way through the building, monologuing. Yes, thank you for reminding us why you're here, Knuckles. That wasn't a waste of a panel. He finds some sort of blaster that his ancestors had used to dig out the building he's in now. It looks just enough, not like a real-world firearm, for me to accept it in the Sonic thing. But it's getting there. I like that Knuckles is reasonable enough to use it for practicality purposes, despite showing irrational hatred of technology earlier. Too bad he doesn't really use it again. He uses it to destroy a door, and that's it. And we finally see Knuckles reunite with the Chaotix, who are happily enjoying themselves because of their gracious hosts, as I expected from how the cloak guy interacted with them earlier. I really like this. It's a nice change of pace and subversion from just having their host be an out-and-out villain. So, this is Archimedes? I was expecting an echidna, not this thing. Is this really him? I'm so confused. So he reprogrammed Eggman's robots. Apparently he's a brilliant genius. That's why Mighty was fighting a robot earlier. And him saying stuff like, he's trying to think. It's annoying and uncalled for. Knuckles hasn't really done many things to make him out and out stupid aside from trust Eggman once in the comics so far. He's been pretty introspective actually. He monologues a lot more than you'd think for an idiot and has a much better vocabulary. Archimedes shows that he has some magical powers, or at least is good at magic tricks. And when I see this panel comparing him and Knuckles in size, I finally realize that he's actually a talking ant. Unlike with most of the times when regular old animals are somehow able to talk though. I'm able to accept this because he can use his limbs like a person, stand upright and has opposable thumbs. So it doesn't feel like sentience would be wasted on him and break the immersion. An ant-mobian. That's pretty interesting. He says looking inexplicably annoyed that his people have helped the echidnas countless times as far back as the origin of the island. Where is he going with this? I don't know because he gets interrupted. By who, you ask? Well, that's when Dimitri comes in, so that was the other voice then. He says that he's grown and evolved during his imprisonment beneath Mount Fate. He was imprisoned? They weren't really very clear on that. But of course, instead of revealing that he's turned good from all of that time in the mountain to think, he boringly reveals that he's just as bad of a villain as before. That he's now Enerjack. That's a pretty cool name actually. And Archimedes says that he's the great evil of legend. How is he the great evil of legend, Enerjack, if this is the first time he's ever introduced himself as Enerjack? Why the hell has he waited this long to try to threaten the world again if he's been free to walk around all that time instead of being crushed under rubble or banished in pink fog? I'm really confused. They're also still not trying to justify why he's acting like a generic take over the world for no reason villain. So while I'm excited and intrigued to see a villain other than Eggman take the spotlight for once, he's not too interesting, aside from his basic concept. The story ends with Enerjack, I guess, brainwashing the Chaotix and then sending Knuckles and the Fire Ants to the desert, because they're the descendants of the people who defeated him. First off, the echidnas did nothing to defeat him. It was all the Fire Ants who did the job. So lashing out against Knuckles was pointless. And second, deserve a better fate? Okay, so explain to me exactly why being sent to a desert is a fate worse than death? If he has such magical powers, he can send them anywhere he wants, potentially any time too. For some reason I was assuming when I read this comic that they were sent way back in time at this point. Then why doesn't he send them to a torture dimension? Why is he letting them live? A villain with such overpoweredness as being a living Chaos Emerald will grant him should be able to beat Knuckles effortlessly. But he doesn't, because then there would be no story and it'd be too grim. So he can't reach his full potential because he's got the Silver the Hedgehog problem. He's so overpowered that he has Storybreaker powers, so the writers have to make him act like an idiot to avoid doing things that end the whole series. He's only allowed to be capable of so much, so the infinite power boast is pretty bullshit. This story was written by Ken Penders and Mike Kantorovich. So far I'm not angry at this issue so much as I'm confused. So many unanswered questions that I'm hoping will be answered later in the miniseries. Why did Archimedes get Knuckles sent here and get the Chaotix kidnapped to be sent here separate from Knuckles for some reason? Why couldn't Knuckles have just gone here with the Chaotix? That still wasn't explained. I guess he wanted extra help fighting Enerjack. Maybe he knew the seal on him was about to break after all that time, but why couldn't he have just told him that from the beginning? If he had said, "Hey Knuckles, I need your help fighting Enerjack, can you come to Mount Fate?" I think he would have agreed. Though how he expected him to fight someone with limitless power in the days before the Master Emerald was introduced to the comic is beyond me. Why didn't he tell Knuckles, "Hey Knux, I'm gonna need a whole bunch of Chaos Emeralds to fix the seal on Enerjack, do you mind?" Instead of playing hide and seek and wasting a whole bunch of time. I was really expecting Archimedes to be an old echidna, possibly Knuckles' father. Not a tiny little ant, but this is a lot more interesting than so-called Knuckles copy and paste. I don't entirely agree with that, but the most confusing thing about this story is that Dimitri never outright says that Knuckles freed him from the rubble by destroying the door. You know, the door that Knuckles was forced to destroy in order to go see his friends, the Chaotix. So basically, Dimitri being freed was entirely Archimedes' fault for not leaving the door open for Knuckles. Wow. But I was so confused by this that I didn't even notice that this was the reason why Dimitri had escaped, and assumed instead that he was sealed away. By magic, I guess. It wasn't until I went back to record commentary for this review that I finally realized, oh, he had actually been released by Knuckles having to destroy a door to get to Archimedes. Well done, Archimedes. You couldn't have, opened the door? I think they should have, had Dimitri boast that it was Knuckles' fault for causing the explosion that freed him. I mean, they have every other time have the characters be Captain Obvious telling the audience what happened. Why not now? Basically, the only problem with this story is a lack of information. This is definitely the first issue out of the 3, that's for sure. Also, it was so short that I had to look it up to see if there were any stories that were missing from it. If it was really that short in the comic itself, maybe that means they should have merged issues 1 and 2 together to make a properly sized story, instead of artificially having 3 issues for the sake of money making. Let's see if that gets resolved.